Okay guys, now we're going to move on to the study of perimeter. Okay, just a quick recap. Perimeter is really the distance around the outside of a figure. So, you know, the other day I took you guys out around the school and made us walk the entire perimeter of the school, the entire distance around the outside. And you know, I always use the example of the pig. Okay, if you have a pig and you're putting that pig, let me just draw the pig here. Not much of an artist, but there's its tail, its ears. Okay, if you had a pig and you did not put fence around all four sides of that pen, that pig would go running out. Okay, so you have to make certain that your pig has fence around all sides of its cage. So perimeter is a distance around the outside of a figure. Let's look at a few examples. So, you know, in many cases, a lot of people put fences around the outside of their homes nowadays, okay? So here's a house, and these people have lined their house with some type of fence around the outside. So if you had to calculate the distance around the outside of that fence, the distance of that fence, if you were going to install it or go to the store and buy it, you would have to add up this side plus this side plus this side plus that side. So here's a very basic example for us to begin with. Now, this is a rectangle, okay? It's a rectangle because it has 4 right angles, 2 sets of opposite parallel sides, and it is a quadrilateral. It's not quite a square because it does not have 4 congruent sides. Okay, and here I can see the length is 10 meters and the width is 6 meters. And in this case, you know, I could add together 10 plus 6 plus 10 plus 6. Or I could think more logically, okay, in terms of using my number sense, because it's very important at this point in our 5th grade career. I could take the formula perimeter equals 2 times length plus 2 times width, because I have 2 lengths that are the same, right? And I have 2 widths that are the same. So if I simply multiply each of those by 2 and add them together, I'm going to find myself the perimeter of this rectangle. So 2 times the length, which is 10, plus 2 times the width, which is 6. And if I use order of operations, we get 20 plus 12, and my perimeter will be equivalent to 32 meters. Okay, and there's nothing squared here or anything because we're simply just finding the distance around the outside of a figure. Okay, so there's an example of finding the perimeter of a rectangle. Now let's look at this example. So I have a square, okay, as you can see right here. One side length is equal to 12.5, 12 and 5/10 inches. What is the perimeter of this square? Okay, very good question, I must say. So if we know a square has 4 congruent sides, okay, we learned that back when we were talking about quadrilateral. So if one side length is equivalent to 12.5 inches, I know that all 4 sides are equivalent to 12.5 inches. Okay, now I could do 2 things. Number 1, I could add 12.5 plus 12.5 plus 12.5 plus 12.5. And then I'd find my sum and find my perimeter in the end. Or I could also use my number sense once again to think to myself, okay, I have 4 12.5s. What could I do with that? Well, when we're calculating the perimeter of a square, because we know all 4 sides are equivalent, we could simply take 12.5 times 4. And if I do the math there, I'm going to find a product, and make sure I bring in my decimal 1 point there, of 50 inches. Okay? Once again, the perimeter of this square is 50 inches, but there's no special label with that. You know, when we're working with area, we say it's squared, or we're working with volume, we say it's cubed. But in the case of perimeter, we're just measuring the distance around the outside, guys. So we're only working with one dimension. Okay, the distance around the outside. We're not trying to find the number of square units or anything like that. Let's look, for example. This, you know, the picture right here in front of you guys could be the floor plan for a house, and you're a bird looking downward. Okay, we could say in terms of that might be the case in this example. Now, it's an irregular figure because it's not a perfect rectangle or square or anything like that, and I have 2 variables here, 2 missing side lengths. So the first thing I need to do is obviously figure out what those side lengths are equivalent to. So side length x, how could I possibly figure that out? Let's think about it here for a second, guys, because if I have this side length equivalent to 20 meters, and this little piece is 8 meters, If I put this piece and this piece together and I drag them down, that they would be equal to 20 meters. So what's the missing piece there? Well, I come to find out that x is equivalent to 12 meters, because if I take 12 meters plus 8 meters and I add those together, I get 20 meters. The same concept applies whenever I'm working right here for variable y, okay? So variable y right here, we need to figure out what it is. This whole side here is 15 meters. This little piece right here is 5 meters, so this is a missing piece. So y plus 5 equals 15. Y would be equal to 10, because 10 plus 5 is equivalent to 15. So now that I have my measurements of all sides, that's the first job when I'm working with irregular figures, guys. I have to make sure that I actually have all side lengths down, or I'm unable to really proceed in figuring anything else out. Now I have to add them together. Now we're going to use a check strategy here to make sure that our work is organized as we go. Put a check beside each measure that I add. Let's add 3 to begin with. Okay, so 8 plus 5, if we think about that, that's 13 plus 2, that's 15. So that's 25. Let's add 10 to 25, and that's going to give us 35. Let's add 20 to 35, and that's going to give us 55. And let's add 55 and 15, and that is going to give us 70 meters. Once again, my perimeter of this whole figure is 70 meters, but that's all I need there in terms of label, okay? We're not working with cubic units or square units. We're simply finding the distance around the outside. If you guys are looking for some more practice on perimeter, you can always visit the ClassFusion page for further review.